The Gauteng government says the etoll system that was meant to be scrapped on the 31st of December last year has been delayed into the new year. Well, according to the provincial government, an agreement with National Treasury had not yet been concluded to support the deactivation of etolls. During his medium-term budget policy statement in 2021, Finance Minister Gauteng announced that the government would take on 70% of SANRAL's debt, while the province would take on 30%. Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has since assured residents that the billing system would be deactivated eventually. To help us unpack these latest developments, we're now joined via Zoom by Wayne Duvenage, who is the CEO of OUTA. Wayne, a very good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Morning Live.
Nice to be with you.
What's your understanding for the reasons behind the delays in scrapping of etolls?
There should be no reasons, really. The decision was made at the end of October with the Minister Gauteng's midterm budget policy statement that the funding of the bonds would be done through an alternative mechanism. Etolls essentially would be scrapped. They gave the date of the 31st of December by when the system would be turned off. They've had 2 months, more than 2 months, to finalize the matters between province and national government. And we cannot understand why that hasn't happened. And this is quite frustrating, especially for businesses that are paying. The few, there's a low percentage of people that are paying, but we cannot understand why. Obviously, there's a gazette process as well that needs to happen. And that could have all been done in this last 2 months. But for some reason, this procrastination, this ineptitude, this indecisiveness just continues. They've missed so many deadlines over the last number of years. So we're not surprised, but it is very frustrating.
But are you at all surprised at another delay in the final action to end etolls? I mean, what does it mean, though, for those who are still paying for etolls?
Well, it's an inconvenience to those people who are still paying. And as I said, there are some companies that just continue to pay just because they have contracts with government. The rules are that if they have contracts with government, they have to pay their etoll bills. But that makes those businesses, for instance, uncompetitive. And they've set up their systems to pass on the cost to their customers. And they would have set them up to now stop passing those costs on, to stop taking the bills. And now that's going to change again. So it's very inconvenient for them, and I think government needs to get its act in order and do stick to the decisions it makes and do the work and the preparation and the background work that enables these decisions. It really is a sign of indecisiveness and incompetence.
How would you advise motorists, though? Should they continue paying their etoll bills while the government is still ironing out a few issues around the cut-off date of the etolls? And what about those who still have outstanding debt? Should they pay that outstanding debt?
No, we believe that anyone who's paying now is wasting their money. There are no consequences. We have shown in the past that all the threats that SANRAL brought, when it comes to withholding vehicle licenses, driver's licenses, bad credit ratings, summonses, all of that has fallen by the wayside. There are no consequences if you don't pay. So really the few, the less than 10% we believe now that are still paying should stop paying and just bring this matter to an end once and for all. There are no consequences, and anybody who's got outstanding debt should ignore that debt, because as we've said all along, this is an irrational process. The costs were too high, and everybody had their right to stand their ground and not pay. And SANRAL gave up summonsing back in March 2019 on etoll debt. So there are going to be no consequences.
But in your opinion, was the government very clear in its reasoning for the delay? Has such reasons been communicated to OUTA?
No, all they've said is that there are a couple of technical matters or final matters that had to be undertaken in the MOU between province and national government. So that was the one thing. What those are, we're not sure. We think it relates to how much provincial government has to contribute. They're still ironing those processes out, and how that money will be provided or allowed for the province to pay this back over time, possibly. So it's that type of detail. And then obviously there's a gazette. You know, the roads were gazetted as tolled roads over 10 years ago, and now they have to be declared as non-tolled roads. And that's a formal process that goes through the gazette. That shouldn't really delay the turning off of the gantries. But, you know, again, it's quite frustrating and alarming that we can be sitting here in 2023 and all these promises and deadlines that have been made have been missed again.
And how long do you think it'll take before it's finally gazetted and the matter is finally put to rest?
Who knows? Who knows? It should be done within this month. It shouldn't take long. A couple of weeks, a month at most. But you know, I guess the history will say that it's probably going to take a couple of months, maybe up till March.
Now, according to your knowledge, Wayne, what does the SANRAL debt currently stand at? And does it make any sense for Treasury to take over the debt?
Well, it is supposed to have been, we've said all along, a social infrastructure of this nature needs to be paid through national taxes. So yes, it should be done at National Treasury level, and quite frankly, they have been settling the outstanding debt and supporting SANRAL in this already for the last 7 years. They've paid over 24 billion rand. Now, there was only 20 billion rand of debt initially instituted for this Gauteng freeway project, and in fact, we say that was probably 2 to 3 times more than it should have been because of the corruption and the road construction costs. But that set aside, 20 billion rand does not add up to the 47 billion rand that SANRAL and National Treasury have said all along. So this is a serious problem for us, and that's why we believe Gauteng province shouldn't be picking up a third of that amount. In fact, they shouldn't be picking up any of it. SANRAL is a national roads agency, and Treasury and the Department of Transport at a national level started this mess, and they need to end it. Why the Gauteng province is being roped in to settle some of the debt, we can't understand. And in fact, over 80% of Gauteng's revenues come from national government, from Treasury anyway. So it's just, you know, moving money from one department to another to settle this debt. It doesn't make sense. The decision is an easy one to make, and they should have made it already.
A decade after you started this fight against etolls, how would you sum it all up?
Well, I think it's a win for society. It is a message and a lesson to government to not take citizens lightly, to do meaningful engagement, to unpack the issues properly, which they didn't do in this case. They didn't do their research. We showed them right in the beginning that it was going to fail. And so a good win for society and a good indication of the strength of citizens when it comes to tackling government's inefficiencies and bad decision making and bad and irrational policy. So that was the one thing. And then I think hopefully government has learned from this process that you can't just simply feel that if you legislate something, everything else will fall into place. The law is one thing, but you need to have practical solutions to the problems that we're trying to address. We all understand that infrastructure doesn't fall out of the sky and that citizens have to pay for it in one way or another. But what we need to do as government and society, working hand in hand, find the best solutions for this country so we can move forward and not introduce very expensive, cumbersome, unworkable situations. And again, we've been telling government on the OUTA matter that this is the same problem coming again, and they keep saying that no, they want to just go ahead and they're legislating it. It's going to fail completely, but they don't want to listen. So it seems that they're not listening from their bad mistakes.
Right. And OUTA reported that at its peak in 2014, only 40% of motorists were e-toll compliant, and it dropped to between 15 and 20% in later years. So what are the numbers as things stand at the moment?
We don't know. They're not telling us. But I would imagine that since the announcement was made at the end of October last year, where it was standing at about 15 to 17% of motorists paying, mainly businesses and government departments, that would have dropped now to below 10%, we imagine. So we don't know the exact numbers, but it's very small when you think that a user pays scheme that should work, and that SANRAL started out this project saying they would get over 90% compliance. They never got over 40%. At 10%, now it's a complete failure.
Right. So how does OUTA suggest should be done to the infrastructure or to the gantries that are still remaining on Gauteng's roads?
Well, I think they can repurpose them. They have indicated that they will, and they should, because, we have paid a lot of money for these gantries. I think the Gauteng province will put those into use, and SANRAL for long distance, for over speed, average speed over distance monitoring, for watching out for stolen vehicles, for policing. There are a number of uses they can put those gantries to, and they can repurpose them, so it shouldn't be a big waste.
But I would imagine an argument would be raised that maintaining those gantries would need money, and who needs to pay the money? It's the motorists. So are we not likely to go back to the whole e-toll saga?
No, never. I think etolls has died. They have indicated that they're not going to be able to pay etolls. Sorry, my dogs are barking in the back. It's a failed scheme, and they're not going to repurpose them.
Okay, so would you say this is your biggest victory as OUTA?
Yeah, it's certainly a milestone. We started out as OUTA on this matter, and here we are today with a victory. Hopefully, well, we hope that they had have learnt a long time ago that this scheme should have been put to bed and not gone down the road that it has. It's wasted a lot of money. So yes, it is the biggest victory that we've had, but there have been many others. I mean, we've tackled over 200 projects in the last 6 years or so.
And I understand that you referred a criminal complaint against Deputy President David Mabuza and others to the investigating directorate, the NPA, and you've also called for charges of organized crime to be brought against him. What's the status of this matter?
Well, we haven't got any feedback other than they are looking into the complaint and the affidavit that we filed with the investigating directorate, with the NPA. It's going to take some time for them to unpack the evidence that we've provided. And there's a lot more evidence, by the way, that they need to go and unpack and verify and corroborate the details that we've provided for them on the land claim scams. So we're not sure where they are in the process, just that they've acknowledged they've received our complaint.
All right, Wayne, it's been lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate your time.
Anytime. All the best. Bye.
All right, thank you. That was the CEO of OUTA, Wayne Duvenage, helping us unpack the latest developments in relation to Gauteng's etolls.